Shalom. This is Hashabath Yawam returning to you with a new lesson, part 3 of Yawam Hashabath. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at Yahawah's calendar. So we're going to look at part 3, statement of truth. Yawam Hashabath is to be celebrated on the 7th day of the week according to Yawam's, and that is the highest or the most highest calendar and not the Gregorian calendar. So the Gregorian calendar is the calendar that we all live under and was given to us by the Roman Catholic, the Romans, and we know they also are called the Roman Catholics. Yeah. So let's take a look at what other churches and our brethren are doing. Now, this has been, and I'm speaking of the 7th day of the week for the celebration of the Sabbath, is one of the most controversial of all doctrines within many worldwide churches, and worse yet, amongst our brethren. Some churches believe that the first day of the week, Sunday, is the true Sabbath, while a few other denominations celebrate Saturday as Hashabath. Now, from speaking to people, leaders in the churches, and you ask them this question, why do you celebrate your Shabbat on a Sunday? Their explanation is because Hamashiach, the Messiah, was raised from the dead on Sunday. So that became the new Shabbat, the day that he rose from the grave. All right, that's what they're saying. And there are other churches that do celebrate Saturday as their Shabbat. There are Hebrew camps that celebrate accordingly. They celebrate their Shabbat on a Saturday, starting from the Friday sunset until Saturday sunset, just like the Jewish people in Israel. And others have gone one step further to celebrate Yawam Hashabath only from sunrise to sunset on Saturday. So they're saying only the daylight hours is to be celebrated as Shabbat. Again, I have not seen any of this written down in the Word. When you study the scriptures and history to a great extent, you will soon realize that all these groups are celebrating Hashabath on the wrong day and at the wrong time. Except when Hashabath falls on Friday/Saturday. I'm speaking of the evening of the Friday to the evening of the Saturday. And this occurs certain times of the year. Yes, it has. I've had it on my calendar. How can we determine the true Shabbat? Meaning the 7th day to celebrate Yawam HaShabbath. Let's look at the book of Jubilees. Chapter 6, verse 30 to 38. All the days of the commandments will be 2 and 50 weeks of days, meaning 52 weeks. And these will make the entire year complete. Thus it is engraved and ordained on the heavenly tablets. There are books in heaven, and the Father has everything written down, even your names. If your name is not written down in heaven, you're not going to make it in. But I digress. Verse 32. And there's no neglecting this commandment for a single year or from year to year. 52 weeks makes 1 year. 32. Verse 32. Command you, Habanai, which means the children of Yasharaal, that they observe the years according to this counting. 364 days. And these will constitute a complete year. So how many days do we celebrate in a year? 365. This is the Gregorian calendar. But Yahawah's calendar is only 364 days. Let's repeat that again. Command you, verse 32, Habani Yasharaal, that they observe the years according to this counting, 364 days. And these will constitute a complete year, and they will not disturb its time from its days and from its feasts. For everything will fall out in them according to their testimony, and they will not leave out any day nor disturb any feast. So if our forefathers had kept the 364 days according to Yahawah's calendar, we will not lose our way when it comes to the Sabbath, when it came to the feast days. Verse 33, but if they neglect and do not observe them according to his commandment, then they will disturb all their seasons, and the years will be dislodged from its order, and they will neglect their established rules. So everything is set. Once you follow that 364-day calendar according to Yahawah, his commandment, everything will be in its rightful place. But if you dislodge even one day, if you change the calendar, then everything is going to fall out of place. Let's read on. Verse 34. And Habani Yasharaal, the children of Yasharaal, will forget and will not find the path of years, and will forget the new moons and seasons, speaking of the festivals, and Shabbathawath, speaking of the different Shabbaths, the Sabbaths, plural, because we have a weekly Shabbath and we also have yearly Shabbath. Because every feast day is to be observed like a Shabbath. So he's speaking of the seasons, meaning the festivals, as well as Shabbathawath, the Sabbaths. And they will wrongly determine all the order of the years, including the Jubilees, the Yahawah. Verse 35, for I know, and from now on will I declare to you, and it is not of my own devising, for the book lies within, for the book lies written in the presence of me, and on the heavenly tablets. The division of days is ordained, or they forget the feast of the covenant, right? And walk according to the feast of the Gentiles, after their error and after their ignorance. Isn't that what is happening right now? We still have our people celebrating Shabbat on Sunday. Because the Roman Catholic, who are the people who changed the Shabbat from the 7th day of the week to the 1st day of the week, they're the ones that changed it. And we have, on the other hand, the Hebrew camps celebrating Shabbat every Friday/Saturday, Friday evening to Saturday evening, because they watch the Jewish people and they're taking their word for it, even though they're part of the Catholic system. I kid you not. Yes, they are. They're all parts and pieces and grouped together, parts and parcel of one demonic, satanic system that has brought about all these changes to keep Yasharaal from celebrating Yahawah's feast days and his Shabbathawath. Yes, that's what it is. And this is happening right now as we speak. And if you say to anyone, hey, celebrating Shabbat on Sunday is the wrong day, first, they think you're being legalistic. Secondly, they think that you are lying, right? And then they'll tell you, anyway, every day is a Shabbat. Why do we need to celebrate one day as a Shabbat? Every day is a Shabbat. But he doesn't want every day. He only wants his day. And the one day that he has declared to be Shabbat is the seventh day. No other day. No other day. So let's read on. Verse 36. For there will be those who will assuredly make observations of the moon and how it disturbs the seasons and comes in from year to year 10 days too soon. And it's true. That's why we cannot depend on the moon for time or seasons, but we can depend on the moon to know when the month starts and ends. Yes, we can. Verse 37. For this reason, the years will come upon them when they disturb the order. Now, if they're following the moon to know the time, you will disturb the order. And make an abominable day, the day of testimony, and an unclean day, a feast day. And they will confound all the days, the holy with the unclean, and the unclean day with the holy, for they will go wrong as to the months, and Shabbath, and feasts, and jubilees. And this is the state that we are in right now. And I'm speaking only of Yasharaal. The Northern Kingdom, well, we know where they are at, but our people now that have been awakened, they're still celebrating Shabbat and the feast days according to the pagans. Yes, they are. And they're taking their word for it. Like we have always done in the past. Our master says, or should I say Massa said, and we follow. All right, verse 38. For this reason I command and testify to you, that you may testify to them. For after your death, and he's speaking to Masha, your children will disturb them, so that they will not make the year 364 days only. And for this reason, they will go wrong as to the new moons and seasons and Shabbath and festivals, and they will eat all kinds of blood with all kinds of flesh. And this is what is happening. This prophecy that the Most High spoke to Masha when he was on the mountain, Mount Horeb, Mount Sinai, for 40 days and 40 nights, he was telling him all these things. And it has come to pass. Jubilees, chapter 2, verse 9. Elohim appointed the sun to be a great sign on the earth for days, and for Shabbath, and for months, and for feasts, and for years, and for Shabbath of years, and for jubilees, and for all seasons of the year. He appointed the sun to do all of that, not the moon. The moon, and the new moon is very important. We don't even celebrate the new moon. But I'll show you later on how important the new moon is. In fact, I'll tell you right now, the new moon, if you don't know what a new moon is, you will go around discovering the beginning of the month. Some people think the moon is new when the moon is full. It is not. There's a difference between full moon and new moon. But the new moon is so important for us because it tells us the first day of the month. And 7 days from that, right? 7 days from the first sliver of the moon, is the Shabbat. All right, let's move on. Yahawah never intended for us to use the moon to dictate time and the length of a day or week or month or year. The moon is inconsistent for this use, with the exception of knowing the new moon, which is predictable. The new moon ends the month, meaning when the moon has lost all of her light. And then directly after that, she starts to wax. That is the new moon. All right. So the new moon, on one hand, when the moon has lost all her light, it ends the month. And when she starts to wax, meaning grow in her light, that's the beginning of the month. Some people call it a sliver, but by the time you see the sliver with your naked eye, it is most likely a day or two already. I don't know where this idea of two people having to declare saying the sliver in order to start the month. I believe they went back somewhere. I don't know if it was Josephus or whoever. But when you see the first sliver, and I've seen the first sliver, and it's barely visible, but I saw it. And I knew it was the first day because it was barely visible. First time I've seen it. I usually see the sliver by day 2. But this was by coincidence that I saw the first sliver. I was very excited. So when we see the beginning of the moon waxing, it helps to determine the Shabbath, which is 7 days later. This is all that is usable by the moon. The sun, on the other hand, is consistent in its rising and setting from month to month, as long as our forefathers followed the pattern of Yahawah's calendar. Right? It's consistent. For us today, time has been changed. Therefore, it is not possible to keep to 30-day, 31-day months, because that's the time that was divided. The days were divided in the 12 months to make up the 52 weeks, which made up the 364 days in 1 year. And I'll show you that in future slides. We can, however, determine the correct weekly Shabbathawath using the new moon and her sliver as our guide. And from there, we can figure out the correct feast days. I will show you the calculations and try to simplify it as much as possible so that you can understand and work on your own calendar. There are some basic things that need to be understood, which many people are denying in this 11th hour, and that is the complete cycle of a day. In the Gregorian calendar, a complete cycle of a day is 24 hours. And within these hours, you have a period of nighttime hours and daytime hours. For Yahawah's calendar, you start a day from sunset and end that day on the following sunset. Let me give you some examples. Genesis 1:5, verse 5. And it's throughout Genesis chapter 1, after he finished his creation on that day, we read this statement, and the evening and the morning were the first day, and the evening and the morning were the second day, and the evening and the morning were the third day. That we will see repeatedly in Genesis chapter 1. Okay? Shayaf. Let's look at Shamawath. Exodus chapter 12, verse 18. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at evening. So he's instructing the children of Yasharaal. This is Masha. You shall eat unleavened bread until 1/20th day of the month, which is the 21st day at evening. So this is speaking of the feast of the unleavened bread. It started from the evening and it ended on the evening. So evening to evening, first day, evening to evening, the second day, until you reach the 7th day, which will line up with the 21st day of the month, because they celebrated the Pesach. We're supposed to celebrate this Pesach and the feast of unleavened bread starting from the 14th day of the month. Okay. Wayakara'a, which is the book of Leviticus, chapter 23, verse 5. In the 14th day of the first month at evening is Yahawah's Passover. That's when you start it. So you're going to start it in the evening and finish it in the morning? No, it is from the evening to evening, the following day. Wayakara'a, Leviticus 23, verse 32. It shall be unto you a Sabbath of rest, and you shall afflict your souls. And this is speaking of the Day of Atonement. In the 9th day of the month, at evening, from evening unto evening, shall you celebrate your Sabbath. Tongue twister, right? So he's telling them, for your Day of Atonement, the day you shall afflict your souls, is celebrated on the 10th day, but you, on the 9th day of the month at evening, from evening until evening, you will celebrate this day. That will constitute the 10th day. The evening of the 9th to the evening of the following day. That will be the day called the 10th day of the month. Bamadabar, which is the book of Numbers, chapter 9, verse 3. And I know this may seem repetitive, but I just want you to see that it's being written down. And if it is for one Shabbat, it is for all of them. If it is for one festival, it's for all of them. It's not just one. It's not only the festival of atonement, the Day of Atonement, that you celebrate the feast day from evening to evening. Some people are preaching this and teaching it. It is incorrect. He's giving you an example of what he is speaking of, what constitutes an entire day, from the evening before to the evening after. That makes a day. Okay, going on to the book of Bamadabar, Numbers chapter 9, verse 3. In the 14th day of this month at evening you shall keep it in his appointed season, according to all the rites of it and according to all the ceremonies thereof shall you keep it. All right? And this is Pesach again. All right? Passover. Bamadabar 9, verse 5. And they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month at evening. In the evening, starting from the evening time. In the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that Yahawah commanded Masha, so did the children of Yasharaal. Why is it difficult to follow the instructions? Why do we want to make it up as we go along? I don't know. Bamadabar 9, again, verse 11. The 14th day of the second month, at evening, they shall keep it and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Now, this particular scripture was telling the children of Yasharaal that if someone was away and they weren't able to keep the Passover on the first month, on the 14th day, then they can keep it on the following month, the second month, on the 14th day, starting at what time? Evening time. The Barayam, Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 6. But at the place where Yahawah al-Hayat shall choose to place his name in, there you shall sacrifice the Passover at evening, at the going down of the sun. You see, he's explaining what evening is. The going down of the sun. At the season that you came forth out of Mitzrayim. So even though it is repeatedly speaking of the Passover, and one time they're speaking of the Day of Atonement, it is confirmation from different times. Masha spoke to the children of Yasharaal when to start the feast days and when to start the Sabbath, from the evening until the following evening. Time is calculated by the sun, from sunset to the following sunset. Although Masha recorded it as evening and morning, the start of a day is from evening. So this was no error. He didn't say from evening is the first day. He said from the evening to the morning constitutes the first day. But he's not denying that until the following evening makes it up the entire day. Because if you know the evening starts the day, then obviously the next day when the evening starts, it means that the day is finished. Right? You gotta kind of use your common sense. Days were never recorded as names, but rather numbers by the Most High. His patriarchs and his saints. Our forefathers only used numbers for the days. Names were later added to days by Pope Gregory the 8th in October 1582. Before this, the Roman emperor system established the Julian calendar, named after Julius Caesar's, and all these are who? Rome, in 46 BC. It would have been continued during the reign of Emperor Constantine. You know, he changed everything back then. He was the emperor who changed the form of worship among Yahawah during his reign to the worship of Mary, calling her the Mother of God, amongst other things. She was the Queen of Heaven, but she was not our Mariam, who gave birth to our Messiah. Not the same person. His heresy still continues to this day, and we see it. We have the Roman Catholic Church. Today we observe the start of a day from 12:01 in the morning until 12 at night, called midnight. Then it begins again 12:01 and is called the following morning. So this is how they've changed time. From instead of sunset to sunset, now it's 12:01 in the morning, because 12 o'clock would have been midnight. Now 12:01, 1 minute later, it's morning to the following midnight. All right? The names of the days in the Gregorian calendar are names of gods, or rather, fallen angels portraying themselves as gods throughout the generations of nations. They may have called themselves by different names depending on the nations that worship them, but they are generally the same gods. Note that pagan worship started with the Babylonians, namely Nimrod, and that would have been after the flood. Well, the fallen angels were around before the flood, but after the flood, when the earth was renewed and there was one language, and they were building this tower of Babel, they had their gods. So let's look at the days of the week. We have Sun Day, is the worship of the sun, God, also called Ra, who was worshipped by the Egyptians, Mitzrayim. The sun was also worshipped by the Greeks and the Roman Empire. Monday is the worship of the moon god, and it's worshipped by the same nations, the Egyptians, the Greeks, and the Romans. Tuesday is the worship of Ares for the Greeks. Mars, he's also called Mars for the Romans, and Anhur for the Egyptians. Masarayam. Wednesday is the worship of Hermes for the Greeks. Mercurius or Mercury for the Romans, and Anubis and Thoth for the Egyptians. Thursday is the worship of Zeus for the Greeks, Jupiter for the Romans, and Amun for the Egyptians. Friday is the worship of Aphrodite for the Greeks, Venus for the Romans, Isis for the Egyptians. And Saturday is the worship of Kronos for the Greeks, Saturn for the Romans, and Geb for the Egyptians. These days that are named after pagan gods are also named after quote-unquote planets. We know that there are no such thing as planets. They're stars, but there are no planets. And the luminaries, which would be the sun and the moon. So Sunday is sun, Monday is moon, Tuesday is Mars, Wednesday is Mercury. These are the quote-unquote planets and luminaries. Thursday is Jupiter, Friday is Venus, Saturday is Saturn. And this is what we worship when we call on these names, when we believe in these things. Yes, we have to still attach our calendar to some degree to their calendar, but we do not call their name, the names of their days, and the names of their months according to what they're calling it. We call it according to what Yahawah and our forefathers have been calling them. Sorry, let's go back to the previous slide. Oh, sorry. Next slide. Even some of the months of the year are named after gods. January is named after Roman god Janus. He's the double-headed, looking backward and forward, the beginning and the ending. Double-headed god. February is named after the Roman god Februa, the god of purification. March is named after the Roman god of war, Mars. April is named after the Latin word for open. May is named after the Greek goddess Maya. June is named after the Roman goddess Juno. July was named after Julius Caesar. August was named after the Emperor Augustus. September, October, November, and December were named after the Roman numerals for 9, 10, 11, and 12. The calculations for the minutes and the hours were also changed. The calculations for the length of a month was changed as well, throwing off the calendar completely that the Most High gave Habbanai Yasharaal. We have lost the celebration of the new moons, Hashabath, the Jubilees, and all the other festivals due to the miscalculation in the dates. But in the case of the new moon, it is no longer recognized as a day of celebration 4 times each year because its purpose is hardly being used by Yasharaal, since the Gregorian calendar is being used. So everyone sticks to the Gregorian calendar and said, this is our calendar. We just need to change, maybe calling it, instead of calling it Sunday, call it the first day of the week. That doesn't work. No, it does not. And I'll show you why later. Jubilees, chapter 6, verse 32 to 34. Command you, Habbanai Yasharaal, the children of Yasharaal, that they observe the years according to this counting, 364 days, and these will constitute a complete year. and they will not disturb its time from its days and from its feasts, for everything will fall out in them according to their testimony, and they will not leave out any day nor disturb any feast. But if they neglect and do not observe them according to his commandment, then they will disturb all their seasons, and the years will be dislodged from its order, and they will neglect their established rules. And Habani Yasharaal will forget, and will not find the path of years, and will forget the new moons and seasons and Shabbathawath, and they will wrongly determine all the order of the years. We are living that currently. Why is Yawam Hashabath so important to discuss today? The times that we are currently living in are the beginning of the end time. As a matter of fact, we are in the birth pangs. 4 seals have been opened. The 5th seal is about to be broken if it hasn't been opened yet. Satan and his fallen angels are raising up his beast system, and his anti-Mashiach, that is the anti-Messiah, will be on the scene very, very soon. It's coming on to the end. And if we can't get it straight, we're going to be trying to figure ourselves out while the beast system is going on. We'll be still stuck here. Why? Because we missed the boat. We missed our ride. So if we don't get it figured out here and now, we're going to lose out in the end. And this is the plan of Satan. We can't be so stubborn and pig-headed, excuse me for using that word, stubborn and stiff-necked, to deny these facts that time has changed, the calendar has changed. Why are we still working according to the calendar? Yasharaal must get back to their true roots and true worship. All 12 tribes need to repent for their disobedience, for calling on other gods and indulging in pagan worship, eating unclean foods, and forsaking Allah's covenant and the sign of his covenant, which is Sabbath, Hashabath. Yasharaal have to leave Babylon in order to return to their true roots and true worship. You see, when you make the step to make it right, he will meet you there. But if you are determined to sit where you are, to remain where you are, and to continue as you are doing, he's not going to do anything for you. And he's not going to prove anything to you either. The ball is in our court right now, folks. He has given us everything we need to make the right choice. If we want to serve him, then we need to step out from under the system and worshiping their pagan gods on their pagan days and their pagan festivals. Yasharaal have to leave Babylon in order to return to their true roots and true worship. Many will want to remain because of their financial investments, and they love the decadence of Babylon. Their preference for Babylon is seen in their many excuses for not wanting to leave their country of slavery to come at least within Allah's borders. There he will certainly protect and provide. That's the first thing they think about. What are we going to do as far as money is concerned? What are we going to eat? Where are we going to live? If I leave where I am right now, at least I have a house or an apartment. At least I have a job, so there's money coming in. But if I leave all of this to go into a strange land, what proof do I have, or what guarantee do I have that he will provide for me? Then it means that you're not in a relationship with him, and you don't trust him. So how can you be in a relationship with him if you don't trust him? If you trust the system that you're under right now more than you trust him, then of course you're not going to leave. But if you love him, then you will have to trust him, wouldn't you? And then you will want to live because you will want to do the things that are pleasing to him, which is to celebrate his Shabbat and his feast days on the correct days, and having nothing in your way to stop you, including a job. What is a job at the end of the day? When the beast system kicks in full force and they tell you you have to have my mark to prove that you are on our side in order to get our privileges, like a job and money and food, be able to go out. So are you going to give up then your belief in him in order to submit to the system, in order to maintain having a job and a little money in your pocket? Is that what you're planning on doing? Because it's coming. You feel a little safe right now because, things seem to have a little bit of a lull. But don't let that fool you. There's always a little quiet before the storm comes. Especially if you're in the eye of the storm. And when it picks up again, there'll be no backing down. There'll be no cooling down. It will just escalate. And then the Most High will come in with his wrath and his judgments. And what are you going to do then? You'll be caught in the crossfires because you wanted to hold on to your life in Babylon. And you know what's going to happen to you? You will just perish. That's all. Yawam Hashabath is the most erroneous and at the same time the most misunderstood feast day amongst our brethren. The first thing to understand is that it is vitally important to keep this day because it is the sign of our covenant with Yahawah. It was the sign for our forefathers which they broke and made Yahawah furious. It was one of the many reasons why he scattered them amongst the heathens. To be in covenant with him today calls for us to be celebrating his Sabbath. Otherwise, what will be the sign that proves we are in covenant with him? His end, he will honor his end of the covenant, but we must first step out in faith and obedience to keep our end of his covenant. At the end of the day, it is only the ones who are in covenant with Yahawah that will make it into his kingdom. Do I need to repeat myself? At the end of the day, it is only the ones who are, who are in covenant with Yahawah that will make it into his kingdom. Yahawah is a covenanted Yahawah. He only deals with covenants. Therefore, you are either in covenant with him or not. It all began with Hashabath and will end with Hashabath, because that's where we're headed. Peace, rest. After the 1,000 year reign of Hamashiach, to enter into our eternal rest. This is what we're heading towards. All right. So we're going to look at the book of Yahawah, the book of Enoch, and I did up a few charts to help you understand. It took me a few tries over the past few years to get the chart correct. So we're going to look at Yahawah chapter 72 from verse 2 to 14. I'm going to read it through and then I'm going to show you it broken down in a chart. In fact, two charts. And this is the first law of the luminaries. The luminary, the sun, has its rising in the eastern doors of heaven. So we know that the sun rises in the east, right? And it's setting in the western doors of heaven. So if you notice, he's calling them doors. Yes, there are doors. There are doors in the east, doors in the west. So when the sun rises, it's coming through a door, coming over the land, and then it sets and it goes through the door in the west. Verse 3, and I saw 6 doors in which the sun sets and the moon rises and sets in these doors, and the leaders of the stars and those whom they lead, 6 in the east and 6 in the west, and all following each other accurately in corresponding order. So we have 6 doors in the east where the sun, the moon, and the stars, they come out of those doors and they set in the corresponding doors. All right? In the west. Verse 4. There were also many windows to the right and left of these doors. And first there goes out the great luminary called the sun, and his disk. The sun is a disk, not a ball. His disk is like the disk of heaven, and he is quite filled with illuminating and heating fire. So if you notice, in the wintertime, the sun will be bright, the day will be bright, but the day will feel cool because there's less heat coming from the sun. In the summertime, the sun is still bright, the day is still bright, but it is extremely hot because the windows that are beside these doors, depending on how many windows are open, will determine how much heat we will be getting from the sun. So if there are only a few windows open, then obviously you're going to be cold. All right? The least amount of windows open will mean that you will feel cold. But if all the windows are open, then you will feel hot. All right? So that's what the windows are responsible for. And we're going to see that later on in the same verse here. Not verse, sorry, the same chapter. The verse 5, the chariot on which he ascends, the wind drives, and the sun goes down from heaven and returns through the north in order to reach the east, and is so guided that he comes to the appropriate door and shines in the face of heaven. Now, many people, if you look at one of those compasses, you'll see that you have north, south, east, and west. And if the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, where is north? How does it come through north to get to east again? Because north is underneath the earth. Yes, it is. North is beneath the earth. And you know how I prove that? I have an app called, oh my God, Skylight. Yes, Skylight. And I got the light version. Excuse me. And you can track the sun, the moon, and the stars anytime, any day. And if the sun, let's give the sun as an example. The moon has just come up and you're tracking stars and you want to track where the sun is. Sometimes if you hold your phone parallel to the earth, you will see that the sun is underneath the earth. Okay, same thing with the moon, same thing with the stars. You can track all around the earth, the sun, the moon, and the stars, all times of the day. Takes a little while to figure out where the moon is if it's daytime, or where the sun is if it's nighttime. But if you're diligent, you can actually find the path of the sun all around the earth. That's where north is. Verse 6. In this way he rises in the first month in the great door, which is the fourth. So that's when when the sun comes out of the door, rises above the earth, sets in the west, goes under the earth, then he can come through either the door that he came through previously, or if it's a change in the month, comes through the next door. That's how it works. The first month in the great door, which is the fourth. So the fourth door is the first month of the year. All right? And we'll calculate and see what month that is. Verse 7. And the fourth door from which the sun rises in the first month are 12 windows from which proceed a flame when they're opened in their season. So depending on how many windows are open, that's how hot it's going to be. When the sun rises in heaven, he comes through that fourth door 30 mornings in succession. So he rises from the fourth door, sets in the fourth door on the other side, comes under the earth, and comes through that door again 30 times. All right? In succession, 30 mornings in succession, and sets accurately in the fourth door in the west. Verse 9. During this period, the day becomes daily longer and night daily. During this period, the day becomes daily longer and night grows shorter to the 30th morning. All right? So he's telling you, he's giving you a clue now as to what month this could be. All right? Being that it's the first month of the year, coming through the fourth door, and he's telling you how long the day will be compared to the nights. So the day now is becoming longer and the nights are becoming shorter to the 30th morning. Verse 10, on that day, the day is shorter than the night by a ninth part, and the day amounts exactly to 10 parts, and the night to 8 parts. And the sun rises from that fourth door and sets in the fourth and returns to the fifth door of the east 30 mornings and rises from it and sets in the fifth door. And so when he's ready to start another month, when he sets in the fourth door, and he's getting ready to rise again and come through the next door, which will be the fifth door. And when the day becomes longer by 2 parts and amounts to 7 parts, and the night becomes shorter and amounts to 7 parts. All right, verse 13. And it returns to the east and enters into the 6th door and rises and sets in the 6th door 131 mornings on the account of its sign, because 4 times in the year we have 31 days. Verse 14. On that day, the day becomes longer than the night, and day becomes double the night. And the day becomes 12 parts, and the night is shortened and become 6 parts. Now, I didn't completely write out the full chapter concerning the doors and the days because I did a chart. Let me show you the chart. So the first month is the 4th door. And there are 30 mornings that the sun goes through, comes from the 4th door in the east and sets in the 4th door in the west. And the days are longer by 1/9, which are 10 parts. The days are 10 parts and the nights are shorter by 8 parts. Now, before I go any further, let me explain why there are only 18 hours. Because according to Yahawah's calendar, our hours were 18 hours in a day. 18 hours in a day, 90 minutes in 1 hour. So our day was actually longer than the 24-hour day. I'll show you that in another slide. That's why the calculations here are according to 18th, because the 2 over the 18th will be 1/9 difference, which brings the day greater by 1/9 to the night. All right? I think I'm getting myself a little... Math is not my strong point here, but I try my best, okay? I'll try to keep it simple. Month 2, after the 30th morning, the sun rises through the 5th door for 30 mornings. All right? Now the days are longer by 2/9, which will be 11 parts day, and the nights will be shorter by 7 parts. All right? I did some calculations, but I try to keep away from those calculations. Just understand these 4, the ones that I have in color. If you understand those 4 months, then you cannot go wrong as to what the other months will be. Okay, month 3, the sun after setting for 30 mornings will rise on the 3rd month through the 6th door for 31 mornings. Days longer by 3/9, which means there are 12 parts to the day, and nights are shorter by 6 parts. So the days now are twice as long as the night. And we can calculate, even looking at the Gregorian calendar, to know what that month will be. Month 4, 6th morning. So now, because there are only 6 doors, so the sun will remain in the 6th door 30 mornings still. And this, even though this is a new month, because now he is reversing. All right? So the 4th month, 6th door, 30 mornings, and the days shortened now. Now the days are getting shorter by 1/9. So now it's 11 parts day, nights 7 parts. Now if you add those 2 numbers together, you will always come up with 18. 11 parts plus 7 equals 18. 12 plus 6 equals 18. All right? Month 5, we're reversing now, going through the 5th door. It rises in the 5th door for 30 mornings, days shortened by 2/9, which would be 10 parts for the day. And now the nights are increasing, becoming 8 parts. Month 6, the sun is now coming through the 4th door again for 31 mornings. So the days are shortened by 9 parts, and the nights now are 9 parts. So the days are equal to nights. Month 7, the sun rises in the 3rd door 30 mornings, and the days are shortened 8 parts, and the nights are lengthened by 10 parts. Equals 18, right? Month 8, the 2nd door, because the sun rises now in the 2nd door for 30 mornings, and the days are shortened to 7 parts, and the nights now are lengthened to 11 parts. Now we're into month 9. The sun, after 30 mornings, rises for the new month in the 1st door for 31 mornings, and the days are shortened to 6 parts, and the nights are lengthened to 12 parts. So now the nights are twice as long as the days. Month 10, the 1st door. So the sun is going to come through the 1st door again, because there are only 6 doors, right? So the sun comes through the same 1st door after being through that door in the month, in the 9th month, in the 10th month. He's coming through the 1st door still for another 30 days. And now the days start to lengthen. 7 parts, and the nights decrease to 11 parts. Month 11. Now the sun goes through the second door for 30 mornings, and the days are lengthened to 8 parts, and the nights to 10 will decrease to 10 parts. And month 12 is the third door. The sun comes through the third door for 31 mornings, and the days are lengthened to 9 parts, and the nights to 9 parts. So the nights are now equal to the days. So you have the same amount of hours, night and day. And then you start again from month 1, and it goes back to the fourth door. And so, and this is the cycle that the Most High had created for his calendar for us. So let's take a look at the months. So month 1 is April. Let's look at what month 1 was. We have 10 parts day, 8 parts night. But this is how you can also calculate it. We know, let's look at the month of June, where the days are twice as long as night. That's summer, right? So if that is June, then the month before that will have to be May, and the month before that will have to be April. Common sense. And we know month 4 is July. Month 5 is fifth. The 5th month is August. The 6th month is September, where the days are equal to the nights. So however long the day is, the nights are equal. And that's our autumn, right? Fall. Month 7 is October. Month 8 is November. Month 9 is December, where the nights are twice as long as the days. Winter time. Right? Okay. Month 10 is January. Month 11 is February. Month 12 is March. The nights are equal to days. That's spring. Now I have them in orange to show you month 1, month 4, month 7, and month 10. That is going to come up pretty soon. But I'll be returning to this slide. Now notice that 4 times in the year, the months have 31 days, which will be June, September, June, September, December, and March. They have 31 days. So let's look at that again. Let's see. June, September, December, and March, they have 31 days. And let's look here why they have 31 days. Because right here where my cursor is showing you that the sun rises for 31 mornings in the 3rd month, which is June. All right. And September, it should be this one here. 4th month, 31 mornings. So we know that 4 times in a year, the months have 31 days. June, September, December, and March. While all the other months have 30 days. Which, if we had kept, would have made the years correct. Also our feast days and Shabbat. Now note that these 4 months happen to line up with the Gregorian calendar's equinoxes and solstices. Right? Yeah. Because they could not change Yahawah's calendar entirely. They changed time as much as they could, but still had to keep within his boundaries. He said, you can't touch my 31 days. You can't touch that. You can try and mess with time, but you can't touch that, because he had a plan. He could not, they had to still keep within his boundaries, the boundaries of his calendar. However, their plan to disrupt our year and our time is working to their delight. I'm sure they're happy about it. Happy that some of our people are worshiping on Sundays, calling it their Shabbat, calling Christmas as a feast day. All these are things that they're happy about, because really and truly, we're celebrating their pagan holidays and on their calendar too, using their calendar. I'm sure that as many of our people are not celebrating what I'm saying, that the calendar, the disruption to our time is working to their delight, right? As many of our people are not celebrating Yahawah's festivals and Shabbat on the correct days. Because if we're not celebrating Yahawah on his days, we are in pagan worship. End of story. Can't say we didn't know or he knows what's in our hearts. Okay, there was a time when we didn't know. I was a Sunday worshiper, right? I didn't know. But once I knew, then I had to change myself. I'll tell you this short story. 1 August, I was house sitting and I was doing some Bible studies. And the Spirit spoke to me with great clarity. Who changed the Shabbat, the day of worship, from the last day of the week to the first day of the week? And I'm looking around like, what? Who changed the Shabbat from the last day of the week to the first day of the week? Who changed it? And I said to him, I don't know. Excuse me. He said, go find out. And I did a Google. And I came across this Catholic bishop. I believe he's still out there on the internet. Who declared that it was the Roman Catholic Church who proudly proclaimed that they were the ones responsible for changing the Shabbat, the day of rest, from the 7th day to the first day of the week. He, as a bishop, a Catholic, Roman Catholic bishop, said, I have made this proclamation that if anyone can show me in the Bible where the Most High said to change his Shabbat from the last day of the week to the first day of the week, I will give them $1,000. And he said, up to this day, no one can prove to him, to show him in the Bible where the Father said to do that. But he said, on the other hand, I can show you a document from my church that proves to you that they have changed it, and purposely so. And when I heard that, I was incensed. I was angry. I called my mother and I asked her the same question. Who changed it? She's like, I don't know. I said, do you know that the Catholic Church, along with everything else, they've changed our day of worship from the last day of the week to the first day of the week? All right. Book of Hanukkah, chapter 75, verse 1. And the leaders of the heads of the thousands who are in charge of the whole creation and over all the stars have also to do with the 4 days of the year which are not counted in the yearly calendar, being not separated from their office according to the reckoning of the year, and these render service on the 4 days which are not counted in the reckoning of the year. And he's speaking about those months that have 31 days. They seem to be off because they're 31, but without those 4 days, the calendar would not be correct. They have a particular purpose. They have an office. They have a station in the year. Verse 2, and because of them many go wrong in them, for those luminaries truly render service to the stations of the world, one in the first door, one in the third door, one in the fourth door, and one in the sixth door, and the exactness of the year is accomplished through its separate 364 stations. So the first door, the third door, the fourth door, and the sixth door, let's look at that to see what days those will be, what months those will be. So the sixth door, okay, let's start from the first door. The first door, the third door, then we go up to the fourth door and the sixth door, and they all line up with the 31 days in the months. Month 3, month 6, month 9, and month 12. And these are what the Gregorian calendar would call the equinoxes and the solstices, but they are our special stations. They have a particular purpose to keep the year, sorry about that, to keep the year in its rightful place, in its rightful order. The days will not move out of place because we have those 4 days established. All right? Making the year a complete 364 days, and he calls them stations. Although the wicked rulers of this world celebrate their pagan holidays on the equinoxes and solstices, those are their high on holy days, by the way. High on holy days. Yahawah, the Most High, have designated his own celebration of his months, which are the new moon celebrations of these months according to his calendar. But they're celebrated, funny enough, the day after. But let's read on. Sorry, the month after. The book of Jubilees, chapter 6, verse 23. On the new moon of the first month, and on the new moon of the fourth month, and on the new moon of the seventh month, and on the new moon of the 10th month are the days of remembrance, and the days of the seasons in the 4 divisions of the years. These are written and ordained as a testimony forever. So let's look at those. The first month, the fourth month, the 7th month, and the 10th month. So now he's looking at the first month, not the doors. The first month is right after the 12th month. Then he said the 4th month is right after the 3rd month. The 3rd month will be the month of June. And that will be the summer solstice, right? But he does not celebrate those days. He celebrates the month after. So it's the 4th month, the 7th month, the 10th month, and the 1st month. Right? Because the 1st month comes after the 12th month. He made sure not to celebrate on those 31 day or 31 station months. And the new moon of those months are special, and I'll show you why. I'll show you why. They're very special. Verse 24, Noach ordained them for himself as feast for the generations forever. So even Noach, which is Noah, he celebrated these 4 new moon months for through his generations, right? And even through our generations of our forefathers. But it had stopped because we were scattered into slavery, and we stopped using our own calendar. So he ordained them for feasts. And here's why. Verse 25. On the new moon of the 1st month, he was told to make for himself an ark. All right? Not an ark, an ark. And on that day, the earth was dry, and he saw from the open ark the earth. On the new moon of the 4th month, the mouths of the depths of the bottomless pit beneath were closed. So this is during the flood now. Everything happened. All the events before the flood and after the flood came on the new moon. On the new moon of the 7th month, all the mouths of the abysses of the earth were opened, and the waters began to descend into them. Now, there are many more verses that give you details as to when he first saw the mountains, when this thing happened, that thing happened, to allow him to know that the water is decreasing from the earth. There are many more scriptures, but I didn't want to make this study too long because we already have many more things to cover. But it's right there in the book of Jubilees. Sorry, let me see. Yeah, the book of Jubilees, chapter 6. Verse 27, on the new moon of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains were seen, and Nach was glad. Verse 28, because of this he ordained them for himself as feasts for a memorial, for himself as feasts for a memorial forever, and thus are they ordained. And he placed them, and he's talking about the new moons, the celebration of these particular new moons. All right? And they placed them on the heavenly tablets. Each had 13 weeks from one to another past their memorial, from the first to the second, from the second to the third, and from the third to the fourth. So from the first to the second, 13 weeks. From the second to the third, 13 weeks. Third to the fourth, 13 weeks. All the days of the commandment will be 52 weeks of days. So when you add those 4 sets of 13 weeks, you will come up with 52 weeks in total, and these will make the entire year complete. Thus it is engraved and ordained on the heavenly tablets, and there's no neglecting this commandment for a single year or from year to year. Once the calendar was established, we were supposed to keep it. That's all. And everything would have fallen in place. Book of Adam and Yahawah, chapter 3, verse 32. And these are examples of how important the new moon is, right? On these particular months. So the new moon of the 4th month, Adam and his wife went out from the garden of Eden, and they dwelt in the land of Elda. I've been calling it Eldan, excuse me, pardon me, it's Elda. In the land of their creation. So the new moon of the 4th month is part of Nach's celebration. And it was the time that they got thrown out of the garden of Eden because they transgressed the commandment of the Most High. The new moon of the 4th month. Book of Jubilees, chapter 16, verse 1. On the new moon of the 4th month, we, the angels, appeared to Abraham at the oak of Mamre, and we talked with him, and we announced to him that Sarah, his wife, would give him a son. So it was on the new moon when Abraham received that prophecy. Chapter 24 of the same book of Jubilees, verse 22, Yahawah appeared to him, meaning Abraham, in the night. Sorry, not Abraham, this will be Yitzhak. Yahawah appeared to Yitzhak in the night of the new moon of the 1st month, and said to him, I am Allahayam of Abraham, your father. Fear not, for I am with you, and shall bless you, and shall surely multiply your offspring as the sand of the earth, for the sake of Abraham, my servant. On the new moon, the Most High made a covenant with Yitzhak. Chapter 27, verse 16. Yaakov went from the well of the oath to go to Haran on the 1st year of the 2nd week in the 44th Jubilee. And he came to Luz on the mountains, that is Bethel, on the new moon of the 1st month of this week. This is when Yaakov was running from his brother Osha because he took his birthright. And his mother sent him to live with her brother, right? And he came to the place at dusk and turned from the way of the west of the road that is closed. And that night he slept there, for the sun had set. And that was the time he saw the ladder from heaven reaching down to the earth, and the angels going up and down the ladder. It's probably a staircase, but he called it a ladder. All right. So this happened on the new moon of the 1st month. Okay. Chapter 28, verse 14. Again, Yaakov went in to Leah, and she conceived and gave birth to a 3rd son, and he called his name Lawai, which is Levi, the priesthood. In the new moon of the 1st month, in the 6th year of this week. The new moon of the 1st month. Levi was born. And then the final scripture, chapter 45, still the book of Jubilees, verse 1. On the new moon of the 4th month, in the 2nd year of the 3rd week of the 45th Jubilee, Yasharaal went into the country of Mizraim to the land of Goshen. This is when they first moved. Joseph was the governor in Mizraim, Egypt. And this is when Yaakov and his sons and their children all moved to Goshen during the famine. Yahawah have used the new moon in some very significant times of our forefathers. These new moons coincided generally with the 1st, 4th, 7th, or 10th months. The accounts of the flood with Noah were based strategically on the new moons of these same months, all found in the book of Jubilees. So let us look at what a new moon is to properly identify the beginnings of our months. Book of Yahawah, chapter 78, verse 8. And as the moon's waning decreases on the 1st day to the 14th parts of her light, on the 2nd to the 13th parts of light, and on the 3rd to 12 parts of light, on the 4th to 11, on the 5th to 10. So we're talking about the 5th day, 10 parts, on the 6th day to the 9th to 9 parts, on the 7th day to 8 parts, on the 8th day to 7 parts, on the 9th day to 6 parts, on the 10th day to 5 parts, on the 11th day to 4 parts, on the 12th day to 3 parts, on the 13th day to 2 parts, on the 14th day to half of a 7th, and all her remaining light disappears wholly on the 15th day. In other words, when the moon is full, it should take 15 days for her to lose, and yes, the moon is a female, she loses her light in 15 days. Verse 9, and in certain months the moon has 29 days, and once she has 28 days. Now, here's the thing that I know, that the moon, something has shifted with the moon. Because when I did my calculations and I tried the numbers are all over the place. Sometimes it takes the moon 16 days to lose her light. That's what I mean. Verse 10. And Ya'al, which is Uriel, showed me, he's an archangel, showed me another law. When light is transferred to the moon, and on which side it is transferred to her by the sun. During all the period during which the moon is growing in her light, she is transferring it to herself when opposite to the sun. During the 14 days, her light is full in heaven. So when she starts to grow in light, it should take 14 days, but not always. Not this moon that we have now. And when she's ablaze throughout, her light is full in heaven, meaning in the sky. Her light is full. This is full moon. And on the first day, she's called the new moon, for on that day the light rises on her, meaning that that's the first sliver. All right? So even though you cannot see the first sliver with your naked eye, it's there. Because once she loses all her light, then she starts to transfer light onto herself, because she is now receives that initial light from the sun. And we can't skip a day and say, well, we didn't see the new moon, we didn't see the sliver last night, so we got to start the month from tomorrow when we actually do see the sliver. You cannot do that, because you'll be missing days. You'll be skipping days. It must be continuous. When you look and you see the sliver, then you can estimate whether or not it is a 2-day sliver or 1-day sliver, depending on the size of it. If it's barely visible, it is now the first day. All right. Verse 12. And on the first day she is called the new moon, for on that day the light rises on her. And she becomes full moon exactly on the day when the sun sets in the west, and from the east she rises at night. And the moon shines the whole night through until the sun rises over against her, and the moon is seen over against the sun. So the way how the Father had created the sun and the moon, when the moon is full, she's always shining on the light, and she rises later and later in the nighttime, so that the nighttime, the maximum amount of hours, she is shining on the earth. As a matter of fact, I noticed this morning, because the moon is waning, losing her light, the moon was still in the sky as the sun was rising. And this is what he's saying right here. And this is happening right now. Okay, verse 14. On the side where the light of the moon comes out, there again she wanes until the light vanishes, and all the days of the month are at the end, and her disk is empty, void of light. So wherever the light starts to appear, there again she wanes. That's where the light disappears, until all the light vanishes. And someone made a significant, and even for me, as a child growing up, and we used to draw, our little childish pictures, and if we're doing a nighttime scene and we do the moon is always like the crescent moon, right? It is sideways. Now the moon is the other way, is pointing upward. So the crescent is not sideways, the crescent is, pointing upwards like two horns. Right? All right. Okay, verse 15. And in 3 months she makes of 30 days, and at her time she makes 3 months of 29 days each, in which she accomplishes her waning in the first period of time, which is supposed to be 14 days, and in the first door for 177 days. Now, we're not going to do any calculations for the moon. That's too confusing, because the moon is very, very fickle, like us women. But the only consistent thing is that the moon, once you see that first sliver, is the beginning of the month. Once the moon is completely void of light, that's the end of the month. That's all we need to know. But I did all of this to show you that the moon is still part of us, of telling us when the month stops, and when the month comes to an end, or when the month begins. Okay. Yahawah 80 verse 1-8. And in those days the angel Yasharaal answered and said to me, Behold, I have shown you everything, Yahawah, and I have revealed everything to you, that you should see this sun and this moon and the leaders of the stars of heaven, and all those who turn them, their tasks and times and departures. And in the days of the sinners the years shall be shortened, and their seed shall be tardy on their lands and fields. And all things on the earth shall alter, and shall not appear in their time, and the rain shall be kept back, and heaven shall withhold it. And in those times the fruits of the earth shall be backward, and shall not grow in their time, and the fruits of the trees shall be withheld in their time. And this is what we're witnessing today. There was a specific time for fruits to appear on the trees. There are specific times for trees to start bearing leaves and flowers. I remember some years ago, a few years, maybe about 7-8 years ago, or even a little bit longer, so let's just say 10 years ago, I was working No, it can't be 10 years ago. It's probably like 7 years ago. I was working in this neighborhood that had all these beautiful cherry blossom trees. And how it has been previous years for me is that around the month of March, when outside got a bit warmer, then we started to see the blossoms budding. Okay? Leaves starting to bud as well, and so are the blossoms. And I would say by the ending of March, the beginning of April, then we start to see these cherry blossom, well, they're cherry blossoms. They're in full force and beautiful. But this one particular year, it was in January, and outside was remarkably warm. And it continued being warm. It was cold at night, but it was warm during the day in the sun. You could actually feel the sun. And it tricked the trees to release their blossoms in January. But guess what happened after that week of warmth? The frost came and killed the blossoms. So the tree was confused. And that started happening year after year, where the blossoms were coming in earlier and earlier, but yet not in their fullness. They were very sparse, and they weren't very pretty to look at, because they were at night. The frost or the cold would make them shrivel, so the following day they will look like very shriveled up, unpleasant to look at. And I noticed that too about the fruit trees and even the little crocuses that would come up. When you see a crocus come up, you know it's spring is close by. But when you see those little white flowers coming up in January, you know something is wrong. You know something is off. Right? So the fruits and the flowers and the blossoms and the leaves, everything is right now confused. Because the seasons, the weather, everything is all in a mess. And this is what these evil entities have done. Right? This is not natural. This is what the evil entities that are running this world, this is what they have done. It's not the climate's fault. It is what these people have done to the climate to cause these things to happen. Okay, verse 4. And the moon shall alter her customs and not appear at her time. And I can confidently say that is happening right now, because as I did my calculations to create my calendar, I noticed it was 16, 17 days before the moon loses her light. But the spirit, the Ruach HaKadosh told me, still calculate the first sliver, the first light as your first day. Don't worry about how it has changed, how she has changed. They did that so that you can throw this idea out the window and not be bothered to create your own calendar. And they want you to stay on the Gregorian calendar, because you know for sure that calendar is wrong. I rather make my own calendar. Let him tell me you did it wrong. But for me to know that their calendar is way wrong, and then I still stick with their calendar, now I will have to be extremely stupid and foolish and ignorant. Let me not be ignorant because of them. Let me be ignorant for myself. All right, verse 5. And in those days the sun shall be seen, and he shall journey in the evening, and on the extremity of the great chariot in the west, and shall shine more brightly than accords with the order of light. And that is happening today. And the reason why the sun is brighter than he has ever been is because of the nanoparticles of metals that they sprayed in the atmosphere. When you have nanoparticles, metal particles, there's reflection from the sun's rays, which will create a brightness that you're not used to. I remember when the sun used to be yellow. The sun is not yellow anymore. No, it's not. Verse 6, and many rulers of the stars shall transgress their customary order, and these shall alter their orbits and task, and not appear at the seasons prescribed to them. And the whole order of the stars shall be concealed from the sinners, and the thoughts of those on the earth shall err concerning them, and they shall be altered from all their ways. They shall err and make them gods. They already have made the stars gods. Look at what they call the so-called planets, which are stars. They call them by their gods' names. And this is what Uriel is talking about. Our Yasharaal. That's his name. Verse 8, and evil shall be multiplied on them, and punishment shall come on them, so as to destroy all. So when we sit there and we say, oh yes, there's such a planet as Jupiter and Saturn and all, these are their gods. Stop calling on their gods. Yawam, Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 15. Take you therefore good heed unto yourselves, for you saw no manner of similitude on the day that Yahawah spoke unto you in Horeb out of the midst of fire. When Masha, or the children of Yasharaal, when they looked up at the mountain and they saw the fire, they saw no image or shape to say that this is Yahawah. That's why he appeared as fire or smoke. Fire doesn't have a shape, neither does smoke. Or a cloud. Well, clouds have shapes, but the cloud that he appeared as was a pillar of cloud. Not those nice puffy things that we see in the sky. No. A pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire. Verse 16, lest you corrupt yourselves and make you a graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female. The likeness of any beast that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged fowl that flies in the air, the likeness of anything that creeps on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth. And lest you lift up your eyes unto heaven, and when you see the sun, the moon, and the stars, even all the host of heaven, should be driven to worship them and serve them, which Yahawah Alahayak have divided. He has allotted, he has assigned the sun, the moon, and the stars to other nations, unto all nations under the whole heaven. He has given them, the other nations, the sun, the moon, and the stars to worship. Yes, he has. But not us. Not us. Okay. Let's look at the minutes, the hours, and the years calculation. I mentioned this earlier. Let's look at Yahawah's calendar and the Gregorian calendar, and let's compare and contrast. Yahawah's calendar, there are 90 minutes in 1 hour. Gregorian calendar, there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. Yahawah's calendar, there are 18 hours in 1 day. The Gregorian calendar, there are 24 hours in 1 day. Yahawah's calendar, there are 30 days in each month except for 4 months which had 31 days, the 3rd, the 6th, the 9th, and the 12th months. This makes up 364 days in 1 year. Now the Gregorian calendar, there are 28 to 31 days in a month, depending on which month it is. So we had a little poem in elementary school, and this poem was 30 days of September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31 days except February alone, which has 28 days. and an extra day in a leap year, which comes once every 4 years, totaling 365 days in 1 year, or 366 days in that leap year. All right. The Yahawah's calendar follow the sun as he is consistent in his solar cycles to calculate the days, weeks, months, years, and jubilees. And although the month is inconsistent in her cycles, our festivals still require us to follow her to keep them in their correct alignment, especially to determine the Sabbath. So when you know the Sabbath, when you know the seventh day, excuse me, when you know the seventh day, you will know where the other festivals will fall on the month, in that month, and in the year. And because if you know the seventh day, in order to know the seventh day, you have to know the first day, obviously, right? But I'm pointing at the Shabbat because it is the important day of the month. And the Shabbat must fall on the seventh day. 7 days later must be the 14th day. 7 days later must be the 21st day. 7 days later must be 28 days. So we must celebrate on our calendar. The Shabbat must be the 7th, 14th, 21st, and the 28th day of every single month. But that does not happen on the Gregorian calendar. On the Gregorian calendar, you'll have the Shabbat falling sometimes on the 13th day. Then it will fall 7 days later on the 20th day, and so on and so forth. Now, those cannot be the Most High's Shabbats. Shabbatawaf. Cannot. Let's finish. The Gregorian calendar, although this calendar follows the solar cycles, they change the length of the hours and days, throwing off Yahawah's calendar. They have instituted other pagan festivals to replace Yasharaal's festivals. And we know what those other pagan festivals are. I mentioned Christmas, Easter, Good Friday, Valentine's Day. These are all pagan holidays. Stop celebrating those days, please. We're almost finished. Now let's calculate and see what has happened when they have changed time. So Yahawah, his calculation of time is 1 hour is 90 minutes. 1 day equals 18 hours. 18 times 90 is a total of 1,620 minutes in 1 day. The Gregorian calendar, 1 hour 60 minutes. 1 day equals 24 hours, which is 24 times 60, a total of 1,440 minutes in 1 day. And when you take 1,440 minutes from 1,620, we have 180 minutes missing per day since using the Gregorian calendar. So it's 1,620 minus 1,440 equals 180 minutes that are missing. And we really don't know how many years we're missing in total. But we were missing years even from the Julian calendar. And that's why we need the Father to end this show. We need to. So let's look at the names of Yahawah's months, the names of the Gregorian months, and the names of the Hebrew months. So our first month, and I have them color-coded for a reason, are according to our names, our language, which is the Oberai language. Abayab, the second month is Zah, and Abayab is the month of April in the Gregorian calendar, and it's the month of Nisan in the Hebrew months. Now, I don't know why they changed, and originally it was Abib. Abib, according to the Hebrew language, but according to our language, it's called Abayab. But they changed Abayab to Nisan. Okay, I don't know why. Second month is Zol, which is the month of May, which is the month of Ayar in the Hebrew calendar, Hebrew month. Third month is Sayawan, which is the month of June, which is the month of Sivan in the Hebrew calendar. Number 4 is Abba, which is the month of July, and the month of Tammuz. Who is Tammuz? The son of Nimrod. He's a pagan god, and they celebrate. Speaking of the Christians, primarily some of the Messianic Christians do it too. Celebrate his birthday on the 25th of December. Tammuz. Go look it up. 5, Nisan, which is the month of August in the Gregorian calendar, and the month of Av, which is actually Ab, because we don't have any V's in our language, which is the same as father. Abba. 6, Alawal, the month of September, or the month of Elul. Ayath and Ayam, which is the month of October, which is the month we're in right now. And the month of Tishri, which is the Hebrew month. The month of number 8, month 8 is Bawal, which is the month of November, which is the month of Cheshvan. I think that's how you pronounce it, Cheshvan. And the ninth month is Kasala, which is the month of December, which is the month of Kislev. The month of number 10, Tabath, which is the month of January, which is the month of Tevet. The 11th month is Shabbath, which is the month of February, the Gregorian calendar, or the month of Shabbat, which is the Hebrew month. And then 12, Adar, which is the month of March, and the month of Adar, which is possibly the only month that we could agree on in the Hebrew month. All right, so I went even further. So I got my months from the Bible. I did, with the exception of Abayab, which they switched to Nisan. But throughout the Tharara, which is the Torah, Abayab is the first month. Abayab is the first month. 5th month had no name. They took it out, so it became Nisan, because it is a month, one of our months. And Abba, instead of Ab, is Abba. Okay? So the meaning of these months. Now, this is how you know that these are our months. Everything that the Most High has given to us has a meaning behind it. So let's look at the meaning of these months. Abayab, to be tender. Who is to be tender? We are to be tender. And this is April, when the blossoms are out and the leaves are now appearing on the trees. They started appearing in March, but they're actually coming out in fullness by April. It's a bit warmer, so the leaves are tender. We're like that. We're like a tender shoot. All right? Brightness. His brightness is our covering. Right? His brightness is our covering. When we choose to be tender, to be that tender plant before Him, His brightness becomes our covering, the covering which is from the Father. Now it has here, their flight is nothingness. And this is what happened when we were disobedient. But as we endure, we will increase because of His confidence in us. He has not turned away from us, has he? And his goodness that will lead us into his rest, which is glorious. All right? And I want to end on that note because there's nothing more that needs to be said. Except, Shalom, Shalom. May the Most High bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you, and may he pour down upon you his awesome, blessed Shalom. Shalom.